I'm a clinical psychologist, and here's one of the things you do to make people less afraid. You don't make the world safer. What you do is people tell you what they're afraid of, and then you break it into little bits so that they can go confront them. So maybe they're afraid of going to a party, and you break that down. You say, well, do you know how to introduce yourself? And they say, well, I don't really even know how to shake someone's hand. And so then you practice having them shake their hand and introduce themselves, because maybe they weren't taught by their half-witted parents when they were young, because they were ignored. And so then you say, well, maybe you can go to a party for half an hour, and all you have to do is introduce yourself to 2 people, and we'll call that success. And you build up their competence and their confidence one step at a time. And what happens, the clinical literature indicates quite clearly, is you don't make people less anxious by doing that. You make them braver. It's not the same thing. You don't make the world and its horrors smaller. You make the person and their capacity to deal with horror larger. You encourage them, you strengthen them. That's what you do at a university. Now, if you do psychotherapy with people and they have a traumatic memory, it won't go away. Well, what do you do with it? Well, you go back into the memory and you assess the sequence of events in detail until they have an account that is sufficiently plausible so that they believe that if the same circumstances arose in the future, they would no longer fall prey to that error. So, for example, if it's a naive person who was manipulated badly by a potential romantic partner, then what you do is you say, okay, well, look, what was it about your viewpoint that put you at risk? I was too trusting. Okay, well, so let's take that apart. What do you mean too trusting? Well, I always assume the good in people. Well, okay, so, what about these instances of people acting in a bad way? Well, I don't really understand that. It's okay, you start to see they need to differentiate up their worldview to take into account the existence of predatory people. And they also generally have to differentiate their view of themselves to stop thinking themselves as nice and harmless. Because it's the nice and harmless naive person that's exploitable by the malevolent psychopath. And that's not moral virtue, that's just weakness. And so you go back and take that apart. You formulate a more differentiated and sophisticated view of the world. The person finds that plausible. Then you have them practice it so they can see that it has applicability in the real world. And then the emotion from the traumatic memory will go away. It's like, I didn't think there were dangerous people in the world. Well, there are. Oh my God, the world's much more dangerous. It's like, yes, it is. Well, what am I going to do about that? You're going to get smarter and sharper, right? Because that's the cure. It's not, we're going to make the world less dangerous. The world is plenty dangerous, but it turns out that you're a lot more capable than you thought.